So, I'll repeat a little bit. We're talking about alocasias today. We don't have a huge selection at our Fitchburg location, which is where we are right now, but we got some cool ones in. We just got in these alocasia polys over here, as well as we've had them for a little while now, some dragon scales. We've got like the big dragon scale baddie over here, as well as some more smaller, very cute silver dragon scales. And then we have just a classic huge elephant ear down here, as you can see. So all of them have vaguely the same care, very easy to take care of in my opinion. I know some people struggle with them, but that's why we're talking about this today. We'll talk about repotting them first, because they are a little bit finicky with their repotting. They're kind of like calatheas. They don't really like their roots to be disturbed too much when you repot them, so you have to be very careful when you're repotting them. Talking about soil then, they like equal parts in their soil. So equal part, whatever your favorite potting mix is, which mine happens to be the Fox Farms Ocean Forest. That's my personal favorite, but you can use whatever you want. And then after that is where it starts to get they need a little bit more precise with their stuff. So it should be equal parts perlite and then equal parts peat moss. If you want to be a little bit extra and give them a little bit of extra drainage, I will put in orchid bark in there too. And that's usually how their potting mix likes to go. After that, you really, really, really want to make sure they have a lot of humidity. That's the biggest thing, and that's why I put this little guy in this little cute humidity dome. At the Fitchburg location, we have a few different sizes of these. Ours are all 50% off right now, so if you're interested in them, come pick them up. They are very useful for plants that like humidity because of the dome. You can mist the inside of the dome and then put it on top of it, and it'll keep all that humidity nice and snug in there, as well as just watering the plant will just up the humidity in general. That being said too, they are very heavy feeders. They like a lot of fertilizer. So when you are repotting them, it's really good to mix in a slow release fertilizer in there, so they always have fertilizer. And then on top of that, when you see active new growth, that is the key for fertilizing your plants. Make sure you see active new growth on there. Don't just fertilize whenever. When they're actively growing, it's very, very important. But for these guys, you can kind of pick. So I grabbed an all-purpose fertilizer, which is a 20-20-20, which is really good for them because they are such heavy feeders. They have a huge appetite. You need to keep up with that. So a 20-20-20 is really, really good for them. But you can also do a lower one, so a 10-10-10 is really good as well. But just keep in mind they are very heavy feeders, so with that lower percentage, they will need a little bit more of that 10-10-10. So I feel like 20-20-20 is a really good one for them. But all-purpose fertilizers are very good. You don't have to go out and buy a special alocasia one. Like you can just do an all-purpose fertilizer. Just make sure the percentages are really high. Anyway, with their light. They're not too picky with their light. I have mine in kind of a bright spot at my home, but they do get a decent amount of shade as well. No direct sun. That is a huge problem for these guys. If you put them in direct sun, they do have a chance of bleaching their leaves and just causing a lot of damage. And as you can see on this guy, it's kind of hard to tell, but this down here is a little tiny new leaf. So if you were to put this in direct new sun, it would just cook that new growth and it would just die immediately. They would have no chance. So a nice, I would say like a medium mild light is very good for them. So they should be getting bright light all day long, but nothing direct, and they shouldn't be right up against a window either. That's kind of where mine are at home, and they're very, very happy. And then watering schedule wise, because they are tropical plants, there's certain elephant ears. I know elephant ears you can lump into those calocasias as well as alocasias, but there are certain elephant ears that can actually live into 6 inches of standing water. So some of these alocasias and calocasias, granted these are all alocasias, but some of them can actually be pond plants, so they do need a decent amount of water. So that being said, at home I'm watering mine every 3 days. Granted, my house is very, very hot. So if yours isn't as hot, your house is a little bit cooler, maybe you have more natural humidity in your house, you probably won't have to water them that often. I know here in the store, we probably water ours twice a week here, and the ones here are pretty happy. So you have to experiment at home, kind of figure out your house's rhythm, the climate inside your own home. Everybody's is different. And like that being said, that's kind of the whole gist on alocasias. They're really not that hard, and there's tons of different varieties. These ones are all kind of the same color, except for this one's a little bit darker with the really cool veins. And the dragon scale, the silver dragon scale, is a little bit lighter green color, and the leaves kind of have a nice kind of whitish, definitely almost silver effect to them. And I know there's even an alocasia that is called Black Magic, and it's a very dark purple, almost black color. So there's lots of different colors you can find, lots of cool varieties. If you keep an eye out coming this spring, a lot of garden centers should start getting their alocasias and calocasias for outside. And there's a really cool variety that's called, oh my gosh, now it's escaping my mind. Mojitos. It's called Alocasia Mojito, and it's it's a super pretty, if any of you have seen the neon pothos, it's that beautiful neon green color, and then it's like splotched with like, literally looks like Jackson Pollock, so somebody came with a paintbrush and splattered black paint all over it, so they're speckled and beautiful. And all of those, even these guys, can be outside during the summer. The key to them being outside those, they need a full shaded spot, no direct sun. And then being outside, they probably will want water every single day, unless you've got sprinklers going. I know it's a very sticky summer, which I'm hoping for this summer. But other than that, they're fairly simple. If you guys have any questions, or maybe I missed something that you guys would like to know, drop a few questions in the chat real quick, and we can try to answer those for you.
Right now, I don't have any questions, but
Okay.
love for you to keep talking.
Well, let me think. There's not really. You can kind of get funky with your. I know these are kind of like all I really showed for humidity domes, but you can get kind of funky with the way you keep your humidity in your plants. Like I know a few of my plants at home, and one of my friends, I got it because one of my friends suggested it to me, because she's got a few alocasias, and she actually got a clear. It looks almost like a glass jar, but it's a cookie jar. Essentially, you can get them at Walmart. They're big, like really just glass jars that have nice lids, kind of like this, but it's just clear glass, and you can put your plants right inside of there. You don't have to pop them in them. You can do kind of like a pebble tray base. So just put pebbles on the bottom, or you can do lava rocks, which are prefer, or like the clay pebbles. And then put your plant right on top, and then essentially fill, like it's a pebble tray, fill the rocks in the bottom, put the lid back on, and the humidity should stay in there for probably almost a week. But once again, you have to experiment it with how hot your house is. But maybe we've got a question.
We do.
Cool.
The first one is, why orchid soil?
Orchid soil. So the reason I have that in there, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. I give my alocasias a little bit more aeration in their soil, so I like to mix in the orchid bark in there too. I know this one specifically also has perlite and charcoal in there too. So if you happen to have a pot that doesn't have a drainage hole in there, the charcoal and just the extra chunkiness will just kind of help purify the water and help so that not all of the extra water in there just soaks into the soil and just gets super muddy and gross. I've noticed it just helps a little bit with drainage too. So I personally like it. You don't have to use it. It's just another thing. I know some people like to be a little bit extra with their soil mixes. So It's just something else you could add into there.
So the next question is, can you water these from the bottom, or do you recommend watering the soil directly?
If you are a bottom waterer, definitely go for it and bottom water them. They aren't too picky that way. I will usually just water right over the top because, like I mentioned earlier, they are a tropical plant and they like a lot of humidity, so they don't mind their leaves getting wet. So I will usually just water right over the top. But if you prefer to bottom water yours, definitely go for it. It won't hurt them to bottom water.
Okay. The next one is just, we love Ella. She's full of knowledge.
I try my best. Guys, I'm always researching plants. Like, there's plants that I've had going on for 2 years now, and I'm still doing research. Like, I'm still falling down the YouTube rabbit hole of video after video after video. Like, even when I'm here at the store, people will ask me questions, and before I'm just like, oh, yes, absolutely. I double check before I'm telling them anything. Just because, like, I have like duplicate plants at home even, and I noticed that even they don't have the same exact care, even though they're the same variety. They're just like people. They're all kind of take everything a little bit different. They're gonna each kind of grow a little bit differently. They just all act a little bit different. So it's all an experiment. Even if you feel like you've got a PhD and all this and that, everything is changing. We're all learning new things every day. So keep researching your plants. There's always new stuff to learn about them, and new little like tips and tricks and hacks you can do too. I've noticed lately.
Okay, I've got a question.
Oh
Personally.
yeah, for sure.
So I hear this a lot, and you've talked about it in some of your other videos where you talk about I'm assuming the fertilizer ratios or the soil ratios where you say 20, 20, 20 or
Yeah.
10. Can you explain that or show what that means?
Okay. I almost want us to move so we can look. We've got, so in our fertilizer section, we've got a big sign that kind of tells you what each one means. So which 2020, here, this 20 means something different, this 20 means something different, and this 20 means something different.
So that was not a good question for me to
Yeah.
ask.
So, no, it is a good question. I wish I would have wrote it down though, so I could for sure, because I've been fertilizing my plants for years, and I always forget what one of them is. Because I know it's potassium, it's nitrates, and then the last one, this is what I always forget. I want to Google it now, so I know. I'm
Okay,
not
that's fine.
looking like a dummy in front of all you.
Well, and I put you on the spot, so.
No, you're totally fine. I looked it up earlier, and I was like, I should probably.
I don't even got another.
Thank you. It's phosphorus.
Thanks, Noah.
So, oh, my phone's dying. So yeah, it's phosphorus, it's nitrates, and then it's potassium. So that's like all the stuff that your plant essentially needs. And you can even buy just phosphorus or just potassium or just all that stuff. You don't have to get something that's like just this. I know for my ferns, I like to give them Epsom salts a lot because they really need a lot of like nitrates. And so that's like the biggest thing in Epsom salts. So it's really good to like I know we're talking about alocasias, but when I water my ferns, sometimes I'll mix Epsom salts into the water and then like soak my ferns in there so they get extra nitrates.
Thank you.
Just little stuff like
Thank
that.
you. I don't know who invited this guy anyway, so. I do have another question for you.
Okay.
How do you recommend picking out an appropriate pot size for the plants?
Okay, so this is where research comes into play a little bit because there's certain plants that like to be root bound, there's other plants that don't like to be root bound. So I can use alocasias as an example. They don't really like to be root bound, but they will grow relatively quickly when they are very happy. So this is in like a 4-inch pot right now. So him only being really like a single leaf and a new little baby growing leaf, I would probably keep him in a 4-inch pot. Whereas like this guy over here, he's got 4 leaves, he's got a new one coming. If I flip him over, I can kind of see a new little root popping out the bottom. So that leads me to believe that he's getting a little bit too big for his pot. So when I repot him, I will probably look for a pot. He looks like he's in a little bit, no, I think it's a 4-inch still, it's just a short 4-inch. So I would probably look for 5 inches isn't really a pot size, unfortunately. I think it should be, but it's not. Kind of weird, but they do it in like 2s. So it's like there's 2-inch, there's 4-inch, there's 6-inch, there's 8-inch, 10, 12, they do it in 2s. So I would look for a 6-inch for him, or if I really don't want him to grow at all, I want him to focus on all his new foliage and just him, not really his root system, I'll get a 4-inch pot as well, and when I take him out of here, I'll snip his roots a little bit. So the parts that are poking out the bottom, they won't even be close to the bottom anymore. Granted, you don't have to do that, and I wouldn't do it for an alocasia, just because, like I mentioned earlier, they're finicky with their repotting. So that would probably cause him to go into a lot of shock if I were to repot him after I did that to him. So I wouldn't advise that. I would probably just stick to a 4-inch pot and then kind of wrap his roots a little bit, even though it's not the best for him. But I just don't think this guy would benefit from going up 2 inches, which is usually what I do for pot sizes. Stick around 2 inches for a size up. But that's just a little bit of what goes through my mind when I would pick up one of these plants and go, oh my gosh, I really want one of these, but I need to repot him. He would stay in a 4-inch. If I didn't have a 4-inch at home, I would actually downsize him to something smaller. Since he's only 1 leaf, But it really all depends once you get into his soil what his root system looks like. If you were to have a crazy giant root system, then I would keep him in the 4-inch or actually try to find him a bigger pot. But as of this guy, it looks like his isn't very big and he's got a lot of leaves. So I'd stick to the 4-inch, but I'd definitely go up to a 6-inch. So I hope that helped a little bit. If it didn't, definitely let me know and I'll try to explain it a little bit better.
You got lots of hearts, so I think
Okay,
that
cool.
awesome. Well,
anything else, you guys?
I don't have any other questions that are popping up right now, so I think we can call her good.
Okay. I know I'm gonna, since there seems like we've got a few amount of people in the chat right now, I'm gonna ask you guys this question because I know I struggled with finding a plant for this week, and I did these ones because we've got some rare alocasias in the store. What are plants that you guys actually want to hear about? What are plants that you guys struggle with at home that you really like, or what's plants that you just want to hear about or are interested in? Because I like to talk about stuff that you guys are interested in, not just stuff that I like or think is cool. Because I know there's more opinions in the world than just mine. So.
That's not true.
Right, I'm the only one who matters. No. But I would like to know what you guys want me to talk about, or what you'd like to hear about. So.
I think we have one for the future here, string of pearls.
Ooh, we just got in some cool string of pearls, so maybe I will do that.
Okay. Anybody else have any other suggestions? Snow keeps falling. It's scaring me. Ooh, here's another. Oh, how do you winter alocasias over? How do you winter alocasias over?
Oh, winterizing them? Okay, so if you, I'm assuming you're talking about ones that you've planted in your yard and you're going to take them out of your yard and bring them inside. I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. If not, I can explain houseplant versions as well. So if you were to plant this big guy down here in your yard, which you can do here in the summer, but you have to make sure once it starts to get around to fall time, that once it starts to hit like 50s at night, you either want to dig him up or cover him. But before you even do that, when his foliage starts to die, which you will start to notice will start to happen when it starts to get colder, you'll want to cut off a lot of that foliage and then dig the bulb up, and you can wrap it. Some of my coworkers will wrap their bulbs in newspaper and then kind of mist them a little bit and either keep them in their basement or a part of like the vegetable drawer of the fridge. They'll actually put them in there. I would do a little bit more research on the specific alocasia you have though, because it might do, the fridge might be a little bit too cold. So a cooler basement or maybe even, I would say a garage might be too cold here in the winter. So I think a basement might be a little bit better. But do a little bit of research on the alocasia specifically that you potted. But essentially that's kind of how you do all bulbs. You cut as much of the foliage off as you can once it starts to die, dig it up, wrap it in a very good moisture retaining medium. You can even do like shredded newspaper in a box and mist it all type of thing. And you'll want to keep it moist throughout the winter. But that's kind of what you would do if it was an outside one. And it doesn't need any light, it just needs to stay misted in a cool place so it doesn't die, but doesn't continue to grow through the winter. But if you have one of these guys as like a little house plant and you notice he's not growing during the winter, essentially you want to cut back half of your watering. So let's say, like I said at home, I water mine every 3 days, so that's probably almost 3 times a week. And so what I've done in the winter, since mine haven't really been growing in the winter, I cut them down to almost once a week to maybe twice a week, depending how dry they actually get. And that's all they do. If there's no active growth, I'm not fertilizing them, I'm not watering them as much as I normally would, and that's about it. That's all you really have to do for inside plants. You really just have to cut down on your watering and just really pay attention to if they're growing or not. If they are growing, go back to your normal watering schedule and continue to fertilize them throughout the winter. Otherwise, if they aren't growing and they really aren't doing anything, cut your watering down, because the watering that you're giving them, they're not using it. So you'll cause fungus gnats, you'll cause root rot, you'll cause all of that bad awful stuff that houseplants hate. So I hope that helped a little bit. That was probably a lot of information I kind of just vomited at you. So if it didn't make that much sense, I'll definitely kind of try to explain it a little bit better. But for houseplant wise, winterizing is really just cutting back on your watering, like probably in half. Otherwise, there isn't really winterizing houseplants, other than like making sure they don't get bugs and stuff through the winter, so spraying. But that's a whole different thing.
Awesome. Okay, if you could just remind them to tune in next week.
Oh yeah, okay. So guess we're coming to our closing time. We will be doing this again next week, Tuesday, around.
Noon.
Oh, okay, yeah, around noonish. So tune in again.
It'll be at the Sun Prairie location.
Okay, yeah, it's gonna be at the Sun Prairie location next time, so it won't be me next time, but still tune in and check in and see what we're talking about next week. So, see you guys.